guys, thank you so much for being a part of this opening session of Make Room. I want to just begin by thanking all of you who have opened your home or convened a group or hosting in some way for this discipleship journey to become a reality. The biblical model is that we grow better in these kinds of environments when we break bread and study the apostles' doctrine together, to borrow from the book of Acts. And so this is the New Testament way. And thank you for committing. If you're showing up at a small group like this, leading a small group like this, it means becoming more like Jesus is important to you. And there is nothing that fills my heart with more joy is to know there are people in our church family taking this journey. So I want to say thank you for you being there, for you hosting. I'm going to do a little more this session than I will in others. I want these to be brief conversation starters because the richness is not in you listening to me. The richness is you working through the material together in building community and in your group. And so I just want to serve as a conversation starter. But because this is week one in Make Room, let me just point to the guide, and I don't know if you can see the guide here. Mine is a little more rudimentary than yours. It is a kind of a pre-release editorial copy that we used before your book was printed. I'm recording these videos a little early, and so I'm working off of, this is my study table here, just kind of bringing you into that. But I want to point out some things. You've already gone through Intro 1, Intro 2 on your own. You've talked about how identity and the concept of honor connect, and the way we show honor to other people is because they're image bearers of God, not because they deserve it, but because they bear the image of God. And the gospel, how gospel is connected to honor, and the fact that God honored us when we didn't deserve it, and it makes it easy for us to start honoring people in our lives that may not deserve it when we see where we fit into the story of the gospel. Those are the intro, and they are foundational to you understanding biblical honor. So if you didn't do those, go back, listen to the sermons, do the studies in your group or on your own for those first 2 weeks. If you haven't, you can catch up. But just in case you haven't been familiar with the book, every section builds on the other. Every week there is a concept which introduces you to the concept. The context, it places that concept in its biblical context. And then the third thing is, what does it mean in today's context? And the fourth thing is, what do I do with this in my practical everyday life? And then what I love about this book and this study that we've improved on is the application section is one of my favorite things. We have, when you come to the application at the end, you have these three things: a starting place, a standard place, and a stretching place. And so for every one of these concepts we're going to study, what does it look like just to begin somewhere? If I'm new to this, or I'm a new believer, or this is an issue I struggle with, where can I start? So there's a very practical starting place. Okay, maybe you're further along the journey. So we put in there, okay, this would be standard for a believer, a Christ follower, to be at this level. So rise to this and practice this. And then there's the stretch. Like if you're ready to go all in and you want to just get above the pack and this kind of like a new level of devotion, there's the stretch for you. And that's going to be every week. As you study, you have those. And I think those are great things to talk about in your group in each week. Okay, so that's enough of just setting up the form of how these are going to go. I won't do this in every week, but let me jump into what will be it's the third week of the sermon series. It's the first week of our groups. And I'm just going to be honest with you. I really thought about the wisdom of having generosity as the first conversation moment when your group meets together. It would have made more sense if, for the group's sake, if the generosity piece was a conversation we had later on, because you guys would have connected more, there would have been more community. It's a very personal conversation, and it may be awkward on the first one, but I needed to talk about it in the sermon series early on because generosity and honor are inseparable. I think the challenge is that the most time we hear the word generosity, our mind immediately goes to money. And while you cannot have a conversation about generosity without talking about money, because money is the most concrete way to measure generosity, money is just a small fraction of what it means to walk and live in a kingdom culture in our heart of what generosity really is. So yeah, you got to have the money conversation, but it's such a small part of that conversation. When it comes to the money conversation, the Bible uses the term first fruits, and we often use the term. You'll hear us if you grew up in church, and if you didn't, you get lost in these languages. The tithe, the first fruits, they're often used interchangeably. A tithe is 10%. The first fruit, which is often synonymous with the tithe, if you study in the Old Testament, it points to something important. The first fruits were the first tenth. So the way it worked in the Old Testament is when you grew crops or you grew livestock and you wanted to honor God with a tithe, you didn't give him what was left over. You gave God the first fruits of your crops, the first fruits of your livestock. It was the cream off the top belonged to God. And you're practicing the principle that I believe God is my source. This farm is not my source. This job is not my source. This grain is not my source. God is my source. And the principle, the Old Testament principle of the tithe and the first fruit is that when I honor God with this, it shows and demonstrates trust. It demonstrates lordship. And then I'm inviting his favor. For literally in the Old Testament, they practice the principle, the first fruits redeem the rest. Like, there is redemption that comes to the 90 because I honored God with the first fruits. And so generosity is an expression of honor. You can't have an honoring heart and not have a generous heart. But money is just one small piece. There is generosity, there is an issue of time. Like, you can measure where you are with honor, how it manifests in your life with generosity, in how you invest your time in other people, how you give your attention to other people, how quickly you are to offer encouragement to people, how present you are. Do you give your presence to people, and are you fully engaged when they're talking to you? Are you in the moment, or are you looking past them, trying to find somebody more important to be with? Generosity is so much more than the money. It's time, it's encouragement, it's presence, it's attention. One of the beautiful things, there's a passage that you'll look at as in this section today from Acts 2, and it just talks about the believers in the early church had so encountered the grace of God. There was so much honor in their heart toward God that impacted the way they treated each other. Because of a response to grace, they had all things in common. They shared. And what is so powerful about that passage is that these are people in Acts 2 from different ethnicities, from different socioeconomic places, they're different languages, and they've all come from a different religious backgrounds and met Jesus and became a spiritual family. And there is this radical generosity that marks their life. Not out of compulsion. They're not obligated. They are responding to grace. They are honoring God through the generosity of their finances, their time, their attention, their encouragement, and it's building bridges. It's building bridges between people. It's building bridges between people's need and God's supernatural provision. It's building bridges between heaven and earth. It really is this powerful display of radical generosity that is built from a heart that has a culture of honor because of what God has done for them. So in your group this week, you're going to talk about what generosity really looks like, where it flows easily from your heart, maybe where it's difficult for you. And here's the most important thing. When we start talking about generosity and how honor is manifest or not manifest in the generosity of our life, I don't know how to say this, is it reveals idols, generosity reveals what we trust and what we treasure. And there is nothing that will expose the idols of our heart any more than looking at our life and say, where does generosity flow easily for me? And where is it a challenge for me to express generosity? If it's a money issue, then maybe money and control and security is an idol of your heart. If it's your attention or your encouragement, maybe your own pride and image is an encouragement of your heart. I don't know, but this is very personal, but it's very important. That's why it's one of the first conversations in honor, because honor and generosity are an inseparable conversation. So there are some really probing questions at the end of this, and my goal each week is to go first. I'm just going to be vulnerable with you, and I'm going to talk openly about some of my own successes and struggles with each of the things we're going to unpack. And here's the question I'm asking of myself to break the ice and start the conversation for you. What is one season in your life where God challenged you to grow in generosity, and how did that experience shape your trust in Him? And those of you that have read my book, have gone through Discover 101, Grow 201, you've gotten a copy. I don't want to be redundant here, but, Haley and I have tried to live a life marked by extravagant generosity. I mean, we've given up our salary for a year. We gave our home away, and we're homeless for a period of time. We gave it to the church here. That actually was the first domino to fall in the building of the building we have on 190 here in Saxe. 4 times in our life, we've emptied everything we have and gave it away and asked God to build it back. It really is not common. I wouldn't expect anybody else to do that. But I don't know why, but every time God asks us to do something crazy like that, I wonder, you would think I would learn, but I have fear. What's going to happen? I have fear of my image, what other people are going to think. There are all these very real things that you would think would get easier, and they don't. I didn't grow up with a lot. And I think one of the reasons maybe God keeps asking me to give so extravagantly is because it would be really easy for security and money to be my idol, to be what I trust in, because I didn't have that to lean on growing up. That was always our biggest insecurity. And so God is trying to keep me in some ways. Yes, I'm advancing His kingdom through generosity, but it's deeper than that. Generosity is discipleship. And it was the one thing that has formed me the most. I teach new believers 4 things that transform my heart from a new believer into a mature follower of Christ. I learned how to pray. I learned how to read the Bible. I learned the importance of being in community, in relationship with the local church, with people that were more spiritually mature than me, and then I learned how to give. Learning how to give as a new believer coming out of addiction started shattering those idols in my heart. I started being a tither right after I got saved, and then God started challenging me to give above and beyond my tithe. And it's just become not something I do, a part of who Haley and I are. It's marked our life. I wish I could tell you it got easier. The tithe is a no-brainer to us anymore, but there are moments when God asks us to do the radical generous things, and it challenges us still because of fear and insecurity. That never goes away. But it's every time is an opportunity for us to just display a new level of trust in God and slay an idol that is trying to destroy us and take control of our heart. So here's what I want to encourage you to do. I'm going to hand it over to you. I want you guys to have a meaningful time of conversation, and we're making room. And this is a way, this is not about making room in a budget. Some of us need to do that, but we're making more room in our life to be fully present with our kids, to be more generous with our encouragement with our coworkers, to walk with God and honor Him in generosity in so many different areas. And I'm excited about where these conversations are going to take you as we are honest. So I'm inviting you to make more room for God in this area of your life. I'll see you next week.